Irreverent, entertaining, cool. You're listening to LA Talk Radio.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristen West, only on LA Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to What Women Want Talk Radio. Thank you for joining us for our show tonight, Shattering the Norm. Kristen West and I co-host this amazing show, which just got onto iHeartRadio, so we're excited to have yet another platform to offer you shows on demand continually. And Kristen's not here this evening. She couldn't make it. I'm very sad to be doing this without her, but we will hear her in the next couple of weeks. We want to thank you for listening out there, everyone. What Women Want Talk Radio has reached the 1.5 million download mark since we first hit the airwaves. And between latalkradio.com's archives, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, and now iHeartRadio, you can find us everywhere. So listen to those replays and like and share and follow when you do. Tonight, we are talking to head disruptor Miki Agrawal, founder of TUSHY and THINX, and also head tomato Cheryl Benton from her company, The Three Tomatoes. And these ladies are taking topics that are normally taboo and pulling them out into the spotlight for discussion and awareness, including being on your period, having a cleaner tushy while saving the environment. Yes, you heard me right. And what life can be like after the age of 50. It's just so impressive to me when women bring subjects out like this into the open to talk about. And I certainly love when they come on the show so I can figure out the psychology of why they're doing what they do. And so they'll be coming on in just a few minutes to do just that. You are listening to What Women Want Talk Radio for our show tonight, Shattering the Norm. My background comes from high fashion modeling with Ford, New York, which wasn't anywhere near a normal career, let me tell you. And after that, I went to the other side of the camera, became a magazine editor and an author with St. Martin's Press, and now I'm back in front of the camera, currently hosting my second season of Behind the Gates. You can see it on AWE channel Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday evenings. And I'm also a regular contributor on NBC and Fox, and an entrepreneur, too. I founded the company What Women Want Networking and National Conference 8 years ago. I'm also a mom of identical twin girls. As a matter of fact, our first guest is an identical twin. So I'm already a little biased that this is going to be a fantastic conversation. Miki Agrawal, a serial social entrepreneur who uses disruptive innovation to challenge the status quo, like she did in the beginning of the show, and change culture. She's the founder of several acclaimed social enterprises, including TUSHY, THINX, Wild, and Icon, a best-selling author of Do Cool Shit, and her next book, Disrupt Her, will be hitting the bookshelves in January 2019. Miki has been honored Fast Company's Most Creative People, Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum, Inc. Magazine's Most Impressive Women Entrepreneurs, Forbes Top 20 Millennials on a Mission, Disruptive Innovation Award winner at the Tribeca Film Festival, and Ad Age's 50 Most Creative People. Welcome to the show, Miki.
Thank you.
Is there anything you don't do, innovate, or create?
Well, first of all, I can't believe you have identical twins.
I know, isn't that funny?
Amazing. I mean, it's probably the single most impactful thing in my life is being an identical twin. And how old are they?
They're 14 now. So we have a house full of teenagers and me and my husband.
Wow, what's that?
3 girls against 1 guy. We're queens of the mountain, though.
Yes, you are. Amazing.
Well, it's so great to have you on the show. I would love for people to know about your background. You know, you were a professional soccer player, which is, to me, being a twin was impressive, but that was really impressive. To an investment banker, these are not typical ventures for a woman.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, actually, I started off as an investment banker right out of college. So graduated from Cornell in 2001. And I got a job in investment banking just because it got us to New York City and it got us, the right, enough money to, make my Indian father not angry that I wasn't going to be a doctor. And so we, my twin sister and I came to New York, and we moved into our apartment the first week of September in 2001, December 1st, 2001.
So you were still, did you go to school with her?
Yes, we both went to Cornell together.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. And we both shared a bunk, did everything together. And we both moved to New York together, both got jobs in investment banking, different companies, but the same group, real estate investment banking. And then my subway stop every single morning was 2 World Trade Center. And it, again, September 1st, 2001. And my girlfriend at the time worked on the 100th floor of 2 World Trade at Aon. And I would often go, get tea with her and then walk across the street to go to my job, which is directly across 2 World Trade Center. And then 9/11 happened, and 700 people in my girlfriend's office died on that day. And she happened to go down and get coffee and miss the plane hitting.
You're kidding.
No. And I, it was the first and only day in my life that I slept through my alarm clock. Every day from before and after to this day, today, I wake up with a light. I'm the lightest sleeper. And it's just somehow the only day in my life that I completely slept through my alarm clock and woke up at 10 o'clock in the morning was on 9/11. And I was
you're giving me chills.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was a divine wake-up call for me, where I realized that the mystery of life was that you never know when it's going to end. And I had to make every moment from that day forward count. And so I wrote down the 3 things I wanted to do with my life. And the first was to play soccer professionally. The second was to make movies. And the third was to start a business. And I was really obsessed with soccer my whole life, starting age 4, all the way to teens, to my late teens, to my early 20s. It was all I lived and breathed. It was soccer. I played in Division I in college. And so I was like, I want to just try out for the New York Magic that were holding tryouts in Brooklyn. And I just snuck out of my investment banking job and went and tried out for the team. And 2.5 months later, I checked, it was announced that I made the team and made the starting lineup. And I was supposed to quit my job and go and, do the soccer thing. But then in the first game of the season, 8 minutes into my professional career, I crossed the ball. The strikers hit it in the back of the net. So I had an assist within the first 8 minutes of the game. But in that same moment, this defender of the opposite team slide tackled me, and I, heard that telltale snap and tore my ACL.
Oh.
And so, yeah. And so I had to actually stay in the investment bank for another year so I can get the best health insurance and the best surgery and the best physical therapy and all that too. And then the following year I tried out again for the team. I made the team again. I made the starting lineup again, and then tore my other ACL in the semifinal game. It was just crazy. So
certainly not meant to be.
Yeah.
So when you went back to banking, were you still thinking about opening a business and wondering about being an entrepreneur? Were you focused on getting yourself back together and trying out for the team again?
That's what I was focusing on, trying out for the team again, because that was really a dream, but a childhood dream for so long, and I just wanted to see if I could do it and really, really get there. And I did. I made the team, and that was a big deal. But then, you're right. It was a complete divine intervention. And so I looked at the second thing on my list, which is to make movies. And I spent my summers in LA working for the guys who produced Dumb and Dumber and Kingpin and all these silly movies. And I just dusted off that film resume and worked on, got a job as an associate producer of a production company. And I realized very quickly that I didn't want to. It was a production company that did commercials and music videos. And I said to myself, I don't want to work at a 9-to-5 job anymore. And so I decided to go freelance and started PAing, being a production assistant, on sets of commercials and music videos, driving directors around, getting coffee for producers, picking up trash after the set. My Asian parents were having heart attacks
Oh,
constantly. It was really, it a tragic time for them. But I, very quickly worked my way up to producing commercials and music videos. And then that was when my first business idea hit was, when you're on sets of commercials and music videos, they have these tables called craft service tables where you eat all this like food. There's like snacks, where you just have like free food on these tables that these productions would basically have. And most often it was really unhealthy. But since I was like an immigrant's daughter with a lot of student loan debt, I was like, free food. And I would eat those snacks as my like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I would just come home, with just awful stomach aches every single day because I was just eating crappy food. I didn't really understand what was happening to my stomach until I finally one night went home with such an awful stomach ache that I just finally went to Google and researched it and discovered that there was the massive processed food industry, the antibiotics, the hormones, the pesticides, the preservatives that was in food, and it was really, causing people to have a lot of intolerances and stomach issues and gut issues. And so I started thinking about the foods that I had given up, and pizza was certainly, one of them, and the top of my list of foods that I wished I could eat, but I couldn't because it was so, made with bleached flour and processed cheese and sugar-filled sauces and processed toppings and all that. And so I said, wait a minute, what if we can take this beloved American pastime? I learned that Americans eat 100 acres of pizza every single day. It's a $32 billion industry, huge category. And so there was an opportunity to take this beloved comfort food and turn it on its head. And so, so then I was like, okay, well, what if we can create an alternative pizza concept that had gluten-free flours and hormone-free cheeses and local seasonal toppings, and instead of using tons of sugar to cut the acid in sauces, you can use fresh carrots and fresh onions to cut the acid in sauce. And I was like, oh, wow, okay, well, so then I started, so then fast forward to get to my, new businesses, started New York's first gluten-free farm-to-table pizza concept called Slice, and then, rebranded it to Wild a few years later. So, and I still have 3 locations called Wild. You can check out eatdrinkwild.com for the restaurants.
And then, you went from food to solving period issues. How?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I would basically run from one restaurant to another. And I, at that point, brought a partner in place and brought a partner to help run the restaurant with me. So he really freed up my time to focus on my next idea, which was in the period space. And what I learned was that I was running from one restaurant to another and kept forgetting to change my tampon or pad. And I would have accidents constantly. And I was just like, I would just be so irresponsible with my period and would just bleed through everything. And I would have to run home and change and wash everything and wash my sheets, wash my, my mattress was it was like a freaking some kind of a horror story, and so I had to replace my mattress all the time, whatever. It was something like a mattress cover. Yeah, it was just bad. And so I finally was like, all right, this is ridiculous. What's happening in this period space? And I discovered that, I looked, as I researched it, discovered that there had only been 3 major innovations in the entire 20th century: tampons, pads, menstrual cups. And there was a huge opportunity to, again, disrupt this category, so my twin sister and I had, the idea at our family barbecue when we were defending our 3-legged race championship title, where in the middle of the race, my twin sister started her period and we had to sprint down the finish line, tied to each other up the stairs, still tied to each other so she can wash out her bathing suit bottoms. And as she was washing out the blood, and as she was washing out the blood from her bathing suit bottoms was when the idea hit. Like, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing to create a pair of underwear that never leaked, that never stained, and that supported women every day of the month? And, fast forward, we took this idea, brought in a third co-founder, Antonia, and then we spent the next 4 years developing this first, period-proof underwear that really felt great for women to wear and wasn't bulky, it didn't feel like a pad. It felt like, liberation when you wore this underwear on your period, and it never leaked. That was so amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. I mean, you afforded, young kids to move on with their sports. I mean, I know my daughter wore it, under her bathing suit when she was swimming, and it really was an incredible innovation. right there. I mean, we have to look at this for what it is. You really did completely throw that industry on its side, and you had problems getting funding because they were mostly men, right? I mean, you really, you had to forge a path through there in the thick of the jungle.
Yeah, it was, back in 2013, around then, like when we started working on it, nobody wanted to talk to us about it. No investors, no media, nobody. We would just call names, called uncouth, called like, oh, you're just trying to get attention, talking about something dirty and gross. And it's just like, why are you talking to me about it? Like even women were like, why are you talking to me about it? It was like we were so indoctrinated and shame, so much shame in society around it. So there was a real opportunity to not only, disrupt the category using an innovative product, but also at the same time, while introducing something new to the market for people to use that actually works, but also, break the taboo at the same time. And so it really became sort of like the period feminist revolution that kind of ensued from that point. It was wild.
And you seem like you have you have a pretty strong personality and independent, and I'm sure you stood up to these men very well. Was your sister the same way? Like my twins are totally opposite from each other, and I couldn't see them partnering in building a company just because they are so far different from each other. It's incredible. Were you the one standing up to them, and mostly, or how did that work?
Well, I mean, so my twin sister, she was always a kind of a silent member of the team. She co-founded it with us, but she was working on another company at that time, and so she was always sort of a silent co-founder. So it never really was where we had to butt heads about anything. She was a total supporter and champion of the business and the brand. So yeah, I mean, we're very similar. We're both very strong-willed. Pretty stubborn, but open, twins. I mean, we definitely we're very identical, in that way. But yeah, so yeah, scaled up business, it's a really, really big business, $150 million business, plus now. And
in just a few years, right? This happened in just a few years, $150 million business. And I know you had some disruptions to deal with besides breaking into the industry or getting male investors. You had kickback of staff growing rapidly and people pushing back against some of the things you were doing. What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in the business of disruption, especially as a female leader, people, the peanut gallery definitely comes out, and people like just to talk shit, oh, she didn't have maternity leave policy and she's a woman running a feminist company. I'm like, no, actually, we didn't have any pregnant people, so we didn't have a policy in place because we didn't have any pregnant people. Mm-hmm. Oh, we like, she didn't do this and she didn't do that. It's just like, okay, like, yeah, we didn't, like we offered health insurance. We offered like $150 towards health insurance. Initially, we only were 10 people, but then one person complained about it, and then we immediately upped to $300 a person. So it's kind of like all the stuff that was coming out was just like half-truths, one-sided, nonsensical stuff that just, I had to let a few people go. And, when you let people go, like some could self-reflect and some could try to retaliate. Like it happens in business, And
it happened to me. And it just came out of left field, and it was just wild. And, I started getting, letters from lawyers that I was, doing this and doing that. And I'm like, wow.
What? I know.
This is crazy.
Crazy.
So I know how that feels.
Crazy. Yeah, it's actually, it really was a crazy time for me. I was pregnant at the time while I was going through it. And it was a really painful, sad, I felt so betrayed. It was just like a lot went on there, but I actually somehow had so much gratitude for the experience because I learned so much. I was so naive before, I definitely was, definitely a first-time entrepreneur in the regard of like scaling a really big business. And so I just made a lot of, like dumb strategic mistakes in the beginning, and I learned from them. Like it was my new company, TUSHY, that I've, since launched. That's going so well. I'm never going to make the same mistakes again.
What's the biggest thing that you learned that you're now applying to this? So when did TUSHY become established?
We launched. Like quietly. The idea came to me in 2014, and then we really had our launch in 2016.
Wow.
In 2018, we were just featured Saturday Night Live.
I was just about to say, it only took you a couple of years to get on Saturday Night Live.
It's actually wild how the business is on a rocket ship, and I feel so proud because so many people were like, oh, she was probably just lucky one time and she'll never do it again, and blah, like all the peanut gallery bullshit. And I'm just like, no, I actually do. I do know
you're creating your success. You're creating a success.
Yeah. And it's like, what I also learned is that the peanut gallery will always be there. There'll always be just that, the peanut gallery. I realize that smut is smut. They'll always be there.
Someone told me that my company wasn't successful until I got sued. So,
right.
So I guess
now
I'm successful because I've been through it. So yeah. I totally get it. And I want people before, because we only have a few minutes left, and I want to get to your book too, because I'm so excited. I've read some of it, but I want people to know what TUSHY is.
Yes. So TUSHY with me is again is shame. We're basically like uncomfortable talking about the poops and like all that stuff. And so as a result, there's been very little innovation in America. We've not adopted the bidet because a French person invented the bidet, and back in the day, the English hated the French. I mean, it's just crazy, nonsensical reasons why Americans have not adopted, using water to properly clean ourselves. I mean, the analogy we give is if a bird poops on your arm, would you take dry paper and just wipe it off, or would you wash it off? Of course you'd wash it off. And so what we've created is simply a bidet attachment that easily clips onto your existing toilet and turns any toilet into a bidet in less than 10 minutes. There's no plumbing, no electrical required. It's only $69, unlike those really expensive Japanese toilets, which cost thousands of dollars, plus plumbing, plus electrical, or those weird French squat things, which you have to like shimmy over with your poopy butt. That doesn't make any sense. And so this is simply a really beautiful, modern, aesthetically pleasing, solution that is a precise shower for your butt. And it cuts down toilet paper consumption. I mean, right now we're killing 15 million trees to make toilet paper. The average American uses 57 sheets of toilet paper per day. One roll of toilet paper requires 37 gallons of water to make one roll of toilet paper versus only using 1 pint of water every time you use a bidet. So actually, you're saving 55 gallons of water per week by using water to properly clean you instead of toilet paper. It's like ridiculous. Everything you think about, like you save money, like in 3 months, you're paid back and you're saving thousands and thousands of dollars over time by using water to precisely clean yourself. I mean, it's just like, it's a no-brainer when you actually think about it, and so
it's amazing. And you're also, I want to interject here too. You're also donating clean latrines in India. Is that right?
Yes. For every TUSHY bidet sold, we're funding the build out of clean sanitation facilities in India. And otherwise right now, the global sanitation crisis affects over 1 billion people. In fact, it's 3 billion, but over 1 billion people are without toilets. 3 billion people don't have proper sanitation, and it's a real problem. It's causing, people, over 1 million children under the age of 5 die of poor sanitation. Half of the hospital beds in Africa could be alleviated by having, by solving the sanitation crisis. I mean, the sanitation crisis is one of the greatest killers of our time, and for us to really, not take for granted the fact that we have a place to go to the bathroom and that billions of people don't have a safe place is something that we're really, really passionate about, to give people the opportunity to have basic human rights. And so, to date, we've helped build 20,000, access for 20,000 people to use toilets, but it's way more than that. But it's because, we're also helping our new partners with this thing called the Smart Loo technology, which actually tests to make sure that the sanitation facilities that are being built are actually kept clean, because then it's a big problem if they're not kept clean. There's a lot of things that we can get into that, but yeah, ultimately we're helping fight the global sanitation crisis with every TUSHY sold.
I know. Honestly, congratulations to you, by the way. That's absolutely fantastic. And I had a hard time condensing your life down to just a few questions in like 20 minutes because you have so much to talk about. But I do want to get to your book. We have about a minute left. I want to talk about Disrupt Her because it's written in a very unique way. It's very powerful. And I want to know, what inspired you to start a book, Disrupt Her?
So I mean, I've been in the business of disrupting different categories for my entire like entrepreneurial career, and I've just been met with so much pushback and so much societal naysaying, and just like girly cat fights. I've been bullied. So many things I've experienced. I've also experienced the empowerment side and the exciting side, and like the I can do anything side. I've experienced all of it. I think that I really wanted to put in a book and look at 13 specific areas in a woman's life where we're told how to think, act, and be in society. This is the way it is. This is the truth. Wiping your ass with dry paper is the way it is. I mean, that's not one of the 13 things, but that's just like an obvious thing where you're just like, okay, there are 13 areas in a woman's life where we're really, really forced to believe certain things. And the book dissects each of those areas in our lives where those common beliefs are questioned, are dissected, looked at the historical context of where these common beliefs come from, and then we disrupt them one by one. So the idea is to really give agency back to ourselves, so we can be the most empowered, lit up, authentic versions of ourselves that are not just following society like blind sheep.
And be, really have success to our highest potential. That's my whole thing, with that we talk about in What Women Want in our networking events and our conferences, is that we just, want women to just be the most that they can be. And this book really calls to that. So, and I was lucky to get an advance copy. It's coming out end of January. Is that right?
Yes, January 29th.
Excellent. I love it. Well, congratulations. And thank you for coming on the show. And, I'm, like I said, there are so many other things, I wanted to talk to you about also, but maybe we'll have to have you back. So we can find your book now. What is it? What is it called? I'm sorry. You
can go disrupther.co.
Well, your book Disrupt Her is coming out in January, but you have right now out. Don't do.
My book Do Cool. My book,
Do Cool Shit. That's right. Yes. No, don't. It's Do Cool Shit. Okay.
Yeah, Do Cool Shit. And
right.
That's out. And the subtitle is Quit Your Day Job, Start Your Own Business, and Live Happily Ever After. And that's out now. And definitely check it out. You can buy it at any bookstore or on Amazon. And
where can we find you on social?
On Instagram, it's at Miki Agrawal, MikiAgrawal. And you go to mikiagrawal.com. And definitely go to hellotushy.com. Do not go to tushy.com. It's a porn site. Go to hellotushy.com. TUSHY.
So that's how we can find you and your tushy. Okay, awesome. I had to throw that in there. I couldn't help myself. Thank you so much, Miki, for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Have a happy holiday. Cheryl Benton is also here with us. She is the founder and publisher and another disruptor in her own way of The Three Tomatoes. Her company is called The Three Tomatoes. It's a lifestyle website, newsletters, and live events for grown-up women. Her first novel, Can You See Us Now, was published earlier this year, and she and her daughter, Ronnie Jenkins, co-created the newly released Martini Wisdom, an Amazon #1 hot new book release. Welcome to the show, Cheryl.
Well, thank you. And I have to say, that was such a great interview. I could still be sitting here listening to you and Miki talk. I kind of feel like that old adage, they always say in entertainment, never follow kids or dogs, and I think we need to add Miki to that list. That was terrific.
Oh, you know what, Cheryl? You're so great. And when you spoke at our What Women Want event in New York City last month, as soon as I heard you, I knew I just had to have you on the show, because you also are disrupting the over 50 female stereotypes and, ways that people see women that age. And it's just wonderful the way you're kind of just forging ahead and making a path for women that age who you feel are invisible, right?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for saying that. And you've been doing that too. And I know that's kind of where I think we first met a few years ago when you were just starting up What Women Want, and The Three Tomatoes was getting started. And, that we need more voices. And I think we're starting to hear more of them now too, and more women talking about what it's really like to be a woman over 50 in a positive way. And we need those positive voices. So we need all of us out there.
And why do you think it's happening in this way? I mean, you're certainly creating a path and people are following you. But why do you think the ageism is a factor at this point?
Well, it's still, ageism still very much exists, and if we don't start to change the perception of it, who else is going to do it? And secondly, when you think about, there was a point in time where 50 was, you didn't have that many years left. Now, when you're 50, you could have another 30, 40, even 50 years to live, and we all want to be there and thrive and be our healthy best selves. And I think there's just more of us looking at how do we do that and how can we create a better life as we age and do that in ways that are very positive. And for so long, we still live, especially in this country, in this very, very youth-oriented society, where often, especially for women, when 50 is looked at as old, it's when a lot of us start to feel invisible, and mostly because society makes us feel invisible. You start to, I spent my career in the ad agency business, and certainly once you get out of that prize 75 to 49-year-old demographic, no one's even marketing to you anymore. So, that was what
they all want Kylie Jenner to, be their advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was how I first, started the Three Tomatoes, because I knew all these fabulous, smart women in New York City, and we would start to have these conversations about where do you buy clothes anymore, or where do you find a restaurant where you can actually have a conversation, and what are you going to do this weekend? And if you start to look up the things happening around town, they were all things geared towards people very young, and you do start to feel ignored. So we really started because we thought, well, let's have the conversations that we're having with each other and just create our own path for doing these things. And that was really the genesis of the Three Tomatoes. And then I realized it wasn't just women in New York, it was women in LA and San Francisco and Chicago and really all across the country that were starting to have these same feelings. And then
so you went from corporate to entrepreneurship also, like Miki did.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
what would you say to a young Miki Agrawal who was starting out a company way back when? It wasn't even that long ago, 6 years ago, I guess. What would you say to her as advice on being a younger generation and starting a company?
Well, I loved hearing her story because what she did was she had so much belief in herself and just forged ahead. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, that's definitely what you have to do, because no one is going to believe in you more than you are. And there are so many naysayers, and it's interesting, hearing her story. And this is actually the Three Tomatoes is actually the third venture, that company that I've started. And all along the way in starting things, I've heard you won't be able to do that, or this idea won't work. And you really just have to shut all of that out and believe in what you're doing and just keep forging ahead. And
I think Miki,
obviously, she's clearly done all of that, which is...
Yeah, I think she's still on the line, too. Miki, are you still there? I wasn't sure if she was still on the line. I wasn't sure if she hung up or not. I just wanted to know if she knew now, if she knew then what she knew now, what she would say to herself back then, because it sounds like she came through a huge learning curve. If you can imagine, Cheryl, growing a company within just a few years to $150 million, value of the company.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I can't imagine, the push and pull and everything that she went through in doing that.
Absolutely.
So what were the two businesses that you started before? Do you still have it?
I started my own ad agency.
Oh, you did? Wow.
Yeah, many years ago, and that's kind of an interesting story in a way. I'd actually worked on the corporate side, and I was heading up head of marketing for a large technology company at the time, and I really wanted to get on the agency side. And I talked to some of the big agencies in New York City, and they were all like, oh, well, you don't have any experience in the agency side of the business. And I was like, well, that's true, but I've been managing agencies and running this huge budget and handling all the market for this big company, but I was having these doors closed. So then one day I just said, you know what, I'm going to just turn this around, and I started my own ad agency, and my first clients were 3 divisions of the company I was working for. So I did that for 10 years, and then the irony of it was I got acquired by a very large ad agency in New York City, and it happened to be one of the agencies that had turned me down 10 years before.
Oh, my gosh.
For a job. So it was great. It was terrific.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. So I think that's part of just believing in what you're doing and not listening to the naysayers and just forging ahead and making it happen.
Well, it's true. I mean, you have to have a passion that, goes beyond eating, breathing, and living your company. It's almost like it becomes, your right arm after a while. So it really has to be something that you just, you can't live without. And that's the only way to be successful. Let's talk about your book. Congratulations on the success of it. Absolutely. Can you see us now? I'd love to hear, because I was there at the event last month when you spoke, but, the people listening were not. So can you tell us a little bit about that and what prompted you to start that? I can imagine what it was.
Well, the story is about 3 best friends who rebel against unsolicited ARP cards, hot flashes, bosses, becoming invisible, and the perceptions of what's old. And it actually the book was inspired really by so many fabulous women who I've had the chance to meet over the last few years through the 3 Tomatoes, and listening to women's stories and just being so inspired by so many terrific women at, every age, whether, women from their 50s through their 90s. And we have great contributors at the 3 Tomatoes, and I've learned so much through them. And originally I was thinking about just writing a book about some of these lessons and things we've learned along the way. And I don't know, somehow I couldn't quite get myself mentally in that mode to write that kind of book. And then one day I was sitting on the train, and I just jotted down a couple sentences, and then it occurred to me, I thought, this needs to be a novel, and I really can tell the story, I think, in a much more engaging and more entertaining way. And that ended up being this book, Can You See Us Now?, which through these 3 best friends who've been friends since their early 20s, who are now starting to turn 50, and they both, all 3 had these great careers and great lives, and then suddenly they turned 50, and the world started to change. One of them works in an ad agency, and we call it, she works for the 12-year-old boss, and he's kind of discounting everything that she says and doesn't feel she has really any real credibility. Another one is in the media. She's a journalist, and she's got a younger rival trying to take over her anchor spot. And life really starts to change for them. But fortunately, and they kind of had their little pity party for a while, and then fortunately they realized we need to just take control of our lives ourselves and turn this around. And that's exactly what they do over the course of the book. And the great thing about it is they have this wonderful group of women friends that are very supportive, who range in ages up until their 90s, and who are really living full and successful lives, and they really look to them for support and inspiration. And really at the heart and soul of the book, it's really about how important our friendships are.
So basically, Can You See Us Now is about women feeling like they're invisible, and then how they kind of re-energize themselves and rediscover themselves. I'm thinking, is it directly related to the 3 Tomatoes, your partners?
Well, it's loosely
Are you going to admit it?
It's loosely based on so many different people. I mean,
Okay.
the three best friends do end up starting a company called the 3 Tomatoes, and this is where you know it's fiction because it becomes hugely successful.
Well, you are pretty well known, I would say.
Yeah, but the stories, what I did, it's stories and things I've heard, and then exaggerated them or pulled different stories together. But there's a lot of truth in it, and I think that's why women are relating to the book. because they see themselves in it, and they see the stories as true, and things that they've gone through or gone through with friends, and how we grow together, really, and how great it is to have a network of great women to be around you as we go through this journey of aging successfully, and celebrating ourselves at every age and every stage. Yes, and having fun. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's about having fun. We live in this anti-aging society. I mean, look at, just walk down the cosmetic aisles anywhere, and that anti-aging thing is, still in our face. And I know there are some cosmetic giants trying to change that concept, but we should be celebrating getting older, because it really can be the best times of our lives. And I think that's what we owe it. We owe it to younger women for them to see us and hear us and see that, and so that they actually want to grow up and be us and feel that way.
And kind of the way that I look down on now, I look at the 16, 17-year-old high fashion models. Somebody asked me at one point, do you ever wish that you were like them again, or ever think back on it in a way that a little resentful now because you're getting older. And I just look at those models now, and I just think to myself, just please appreciate what you have. And that's all I want. I'm not jealous. I don't want to be them. I went through that, and that was my thing, and I was very lucky to be one of them. But, I look at them now and just hope that they'll appreciate the years that they have, that they are modeling and traveling the world and doing all that. So I guess you kind of have to look at it from, your point of view and in a positive light. And yes, I mean, every birthday that I hit, I'm very happy that I'm still around. I've had too many losses of people that are close to me that aren't around, and it's just, you do have to celebrate life. And that brings me to martini wisdom, because I love celebrating with martinis. So I would love to know some of the wisdom that comes out of drinking one, or is that not having anything? Does that have anything to do with it? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yes. Martini wisdom. Vino Vision, that's another one, Yeah, the Martini Ladies, we call them Martini Ladies for several years now. We've, usually in one of our weekly, once a week in one of our newsletters, we kind of feature this. We call it the Martini Lady, because she's usually got a martini in her hand.
Yeah, it's so refreshing from the glass of wine. I love it.
Yeah, and she has some kind of irreverent thing that comes out of her mouth. So I kind of like to think of her as sort of maybe like a Betty Davis kind of a character, with the cigarette in one hand and the martini in the other, and she's, giving us her snarky, irreverent wisdom. And they're fun and quirky, and people just have really responded to them over the years. And Ronnie Jenkins, my daughter, who I also have the great fortune of, we work together at the Three Tomatoes too, which is terrific fun. And we said, why don't we just put these into a fun little book? And we spent some time going through some that we already had, and then creating some others. We just had so much fun doing it together. I mean, we obviously were drinking wine as we did a lot of these, and laughing hysterically along the way. And we put together this little book. It actually has 50 of the Martini Wisdom quotes, and it came out in mid-November, and it hit the Amazon #1 hot best-selling list. Like in the first week, we were amazed.
Oh my gosh! Congratulations!
And yeah, it's a cute little gift book. It's funny. It's fun. It's something you can just pick up, read again. Give it to a friend as a gift. Kind of read out loud and laugh, and that's kind of what it's all about, having a good time. So that's been very fun. So I kind of laugh. I'm like, you spend all this time writing a novel and putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then this cute little 50-quip book just takes off. So that
you wrote drunk, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of never know what's
some of the
happen.
Most prolific thoughts come out of my mouth when I'm buzzed. That's for sure. But I certainly can't do it on the radio show, because I'd start slurring, and that wouldn't be good. But I appreciate that, because I feel like that's a disruption in and of itself right there, that book, because wine is often equated with women and martinis with men. So I appreciate, that wording there with the martini wisdom that the women can, come up with that also. What's the most impactful piece of wisdom that you think is in there? Or what is the best piece of advice that you think you've got going in those 50 pages?
Well, with all of them, it's just the ability to laugh and have a good time with your life. I mean, that's really what it's about. It's about fun, and it's at the end of the day, just enjoying who you are, being comfortable in your own skin. I mean, that's what I love about the Martini Ladies, because they just say what they think.
Mm-hmm. And if you're not happy,
I really don't care whether I don't care whether you like me. I mean, one of them is, I don't really care what people think. That's for insecure people.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to turn 50 sometimes to realize that you don't really care what people think about you. But what about if somebody is unhappy and they're not having fun and they're not getting all out of life that they feel like they should? What would you say to them? Because that's a bit of martini wisdom too, is to kind of loosen up and step back a bit, don't you think?
Well, it is, and I think, and you've hit on something that's really important, and I do think that tends to happen to a lot of women when they hit 50, or even after 50, where you kind of get to a point maybe where you're giving up on yourself. So I think then it's time, as I say, you can have a pity party for 24 hours, and then, we're all entitled to that. Then you have to sit down the next day and really take a good look, inside and say, what are the things that do make me happy? What are the things that I used to feel happy about? What are the things that I used to like to do that I find I don't do anymore? What gives me joy? I think there are things that you need to look internally and really start asking yourself a lot of questions, deep questions that sometimes we don't always do. And it's, happiness comes from within. And I think that's one of the things that you learn as you get older. I think when we're younger, we expect other people to make us happy, or things to make us happy. If I only get this job, I'm going to be so happy. If I only make this amount of money, if I
or this husband, or this kind of husband,
yeah, this guy, then I'm going to be happy. By the time you get to 50, you pretty much figured out that that's not what it's about. And you better darn well have some reserves inside and start to realize that. So I think that's such an important lesson for all of us, and the sooner that we learn that and that we really internalize that, the better that we are in the long run. And understanding that, honestly, after 50 can be the best time of your life. And I think women start to become their most creative. I know I have, and I've seen it with so many other women. And I think it can be a time of great freedom for us. It's a time when, as you start to get older, where there may be you're not so much in the rat race of I've got to get to the top of my career. Hopefully, you've already done that, or you're at a point where you're happy with it. You're maybe getting to the point where kids are getting grown, not for you because they're out of the house. That will come. And there's time for you. There's a freedom, and there starts to be real me time and things that you can really start to explore. And that can just be a great time in life for so many women. And I've seen it with just amazing women, fabulous women in their 80s who are starting things that they never thought they would do before, and it's a great time for women to be alive, and it's a great time for older women to be alive. And we're going to be living longer, so we really kind of need to figure out what are the things we want to do. The things that kind of worked, years ago don't really, hold up anymore.
Well, you and Miki gave me a lot to think about now.
Good.
What I'm going to go out and disrupt and what I'm going to do next. It's just, and then also how to slow down and figure out, what makes me happy and to make sure I have gratitude and write in my journal. And I never really was a journal type of person, but I've taken it up lately, and it really helps. It really helps clear the mind and set your foot forward in the right way with your goals. Where can we can get your Martini Wisdom, and can you see us now on Amazon and all over the place, right?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. And congratulations with your success. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
So much. It's great.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure to have you. Where can we find you as far as the 3tomatoes.com, obviously, but where can we find you on social?
Oh, Facebook, it's also at the3tomatoes.com. Instagram is the3tomatoes.com. The 3 is spelled out, except for Twitter, which is the 3 number tomatoes. But we are out there, and it's great. We'd love to hear from folks.
Excellent. So everyone out there, grab a bidet, grab a Martini Wisdom, and
yes.
go back to your throne and have a good time. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, and for everyone else that's listening. Thank you for listening to What Women Want. Keep in touch with us on social media and, of course, our website, whatwomenwantradio.com, to listen to our archive of all of our shows. Happy holidays. Thank you.
You're listening to What Women Want with Judy Goss and Kristen West, only on LA Talk Radio.